Salam, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for that really insightful presentation. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, guests, Ministries of Education. My name is Julian Pienaar. I am the Solutions Advocate for Lenovo. I've traveled quite a distance from South Africa to be here with you here today, and it is really good to see all of you in the room here. Now, we've spoken about ICT technologies in education. Of course, the big key things that we need to look at is responsibilities. Who is responsible for the following things? Infrastructure, we know we can be set up by the Ministries of Education, but obviously who is taking responsibility for the purchasing of the devices? Who is taking responsibility for the maintenance and the upkeep of these devices? And of course, is it the schools? Is it the universities? Is it the parents? What are the parents' role in this? And of course, is it the policymakers? And that'll lead to my first question for our fantastic panel here this morning. Who should be responsible for all of these things and roles in education? Ms. Rana, can we start off with you, please? Thank you.
Good morning. Actually, if we're going to talk about the responsibility, I believe that it's the responsibility of everybody. We're talking about the policymakers, we're talking about the parents, we're talking about the schools. And many times what we do, the policymakers, they decide on what they're going to do, and the parents are not involved in the whole process, or even the schools, the principals, the teachers, and they will feel that they're not part of the whole planning and vision of the policymakers. So that's why I believe at this stage we need to look at all players together. They need to collaborate, they need to communicate and start talking about what they need. In addition to that, the important thing is what kind of message we want to send to parents when we start talking about technology and why do we need technology in our schools. This is the most important thing. They need to be informed, they need to be decision makers with us, so they know that at the end of the day this is for the benefit of their children.
Excellent, thank you very much. And also, it is important for the parents because we need to look at who is going to pay for the devices. If it's up to the schools and the universities and the parents, is it only the wealthy that will be able to obviously get hold of this technology and all of that? Or how do we advantage others? And of course, this is a question to the vendors. The pricing of the devices is very important. I see we've got Microsoft up here, we've got Intel, and we've got Hewlett Packard. I would like to know their opinion in terms of, from an education point of view, what are the vendors doing in terms of bringing the costs of the devices down? Intel.
Thank you, Julian. I think the price aspect or the total cost of ownership aspect is very important. Now, however, this needs to be in collaboration with probably telecos. We have a fantastic example that we have actually concluded in Lebanon, where the telecos is an essential channel of reaching all these people and reaching all these students. So whether it's a subsidy program, whether it's under a bigger umbrella of a developmental project, I think it's essential to have a third party be involved in the cost of that tablet, not only from the vendor's side, in terms of apart from having a specific aggressive, I would say, pricing for students, because that's eventually business for the vendors and for the telecos. So there's a business model behind it for everybody from a business perspective, and there's of course the human developmental aspect. So my answer in short is that it's many parties. Of course the vendor is part of it, but you still need a partner in that particular country to actually help develop that particular country and their own business.
Excellent, thank you very much. Mr. Ziyad from Hewlett Packard, what is your opinion on this?
Yes, good morning. I just would like to answer your question with another question. I mean, we talk about costing here. I would like to ask how many students have mobile phones? You know,
probably all of them. Probably
all of them.
They've probably got two, some of them as well.
Okay. Now, do you know that a mobile phone today is more than a tablet?
In some cases.
So I don't think cost is it's an issue, but it's not a major issue. The technology is changing. Tablets today, as you have seen in the presentation, are getting smaller, lighter. and having the interaction between technologies and mobile devices and notebooks. Getting these two technologies together in a factor that is addressable to the education sector, and costs are a bit less than mobiles. So I think we're going to start seeing those tablets in the hands of students irrespective of who pays for those. Because today, if you can get a student taking a tablet that can have the same functionalities as a mobile phone, that will be adapted. So instead of having two mobiles, as you have said, probably they will have a tablet in their hand and another mobile. And the way I see it, frankly speaking, I think even the integration are still taking place, whereby in a very, very near future, I would see even the existence or the notions between having a tablet and mobile will also dissolve into one single device. So this is the way we see things. This is the way the trends is taking place. And so my answer is cost is a major issue, but it is not the issue, frankly speaking.
Thank you very much, sir. And as you've mentioned, mobile devices are changing. They've been out. We've had mobile phones around for the last 20 years. Hard to believe that, mobile phones. And they've gone from making phone calls and text messages to pictures, high-definition photographs, movies and things like that. So basically, they're becoming, in fact, the word that people have used is the word phablet, which is obviously a phone and a tablet. And more mobile phones, I'm not going to mention any brands or anything, but the phone is getting really big, so it's kind of like this in a case of certain, But yes, there is a point that a lot of people can have two devices, still the tablet and the phone. There is still a need to have both in terms of content. Some content on smaller devices is obviously being seen. Now, tablets is the technology of now. Who in the room has never worked on a tablet before? Okay, that's a good thing. Because tablets are convenient, most of the time tablets are used for consuming data and information. More of the newer tablets are there for creating content. So you've got to look at the devices, and obviously applications is the most important thing. Now, in terms of applications, what platform, what operating systems are important to have on the devices, and obviously how do you manage the security of the devices, which is very important. And I'm going to first aim this question to our gentleman from Microsoft here this morning, as in terms of what do you think is the correct way of what operating system should be put onto all the...
I'm sure my answer is not going to be impartial, so good morning to everybody. It's an honor to be with you. I think listening to the esteemed crowd and all the presentations that I've heard from the last couple of days, it's important to look at several aspects when you're considering an operating system. So it's important that you're looking at productivity and employability. It's important to look at total cost of ownership. It's important to look at interoperability and compatibility. So there are several. Of course, without going out and saying I favor, a Windows operating system, as I would naturally do, but I would think that these factors should be considered heavily before making a decision on the operating system, because these factors are extremely important as in the learning outcomes. And an example on the productivity and employability, where with productivity, being able to split the screen in two and having one window where you can use your education application, the other window where you can use OneNote, take messages for research or etc. or notes. That's one important thing. The ability to use applications and products that are now the standards in industries like Microsoft Office or Adobe Photoshop, etc. That's important because you want the students to come out knowing how to use these products, because they're going to use them in the workplace. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cox, I'd like your opinion on that. I know that you've worked a lot with the Apple operating system. In terms of productivity and multitasking and that, you've obviously worked with the product a long time. What is your input on using operating systems in the education environment?
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I don't actually work for Apple. I use their products. I've done some interesting stuff on mobile learning with Apple products. So I don't want to get into kind of a vendor war around which device is compatible and which is better, because actually my view is that if you have money to spend and invest in technology and you want to go down the mobile device route, and I would recommend that you did, because if I was to say to you a quick test around this audience today, if you could think of one word that would describe your mobile phone, you'll probably come up with a word like good, great, necessary, convenient. So therefore, we should be using those devices in a learning capacity. So I would recommend that you actually, rather than spend 100% of your budget on devices, you spend 80% on devices and then the rest of your budget on professional development to actually maximize that 80%, because therein for me lies the issue around actually whatever device, operating system you employ. It's around actually developing the student and the teacher to embrace that, because we don't know what will be the operating system of choice in the future. So that would be my advice.
Excellent, thank you very much. Now, obviously, in terms of operating system and usage, we need to look at, if an operating system is chosen, what kind of maintenance is required on that operating system, keeping in mind that these devices will be used for 3 to 5 years. That is the important thing. So obviously, that is the life cycle. Most technology devices, and from a corporate side of things, they look at everything generally at a 3-year, because that's the speed of technology, okay? People, when they start studying from early ages all the way up to matric and then obviously into the universities, that's anything from 12 to 20 years. So we've obviously got to look at the life cycles of the devices and the maintenance to support these devices. I'd just like to understand from our panel here, if anyone wants to take this question, is maintenance important on these devices? Do we try and keep up? And obviously, if we introduce new operating systems into the environment, how is it supported? Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, I would answer your questions with 3 points. Number one is, I will deviate a little bit from your question just to emphasize a point that I think we've just dived into the actual detail of the whole thing, not mentioning that irrelevant of the operating system or the device itself in that case, actually, it truly comes down to 2 things. Number one, the will from policymakers to actually believe that the integration of ICT in education actually betters off the education process, and I think we are very close from everybody being convinced of that, number one. Number two is that device or that operating system should be embedded between the student and the teacher. Today we are at, today I keep hearing this example, we are at an age where everybody comes to you and says, hey, my 2-year-old can hold the tablet and she just can't open it. And that's usually a very common remark you hear from everybody. And you can safely assume that actually not today, the generation of students are more IT intuitive and IT literate than the teachers. So the teachers, there's a lot of focus that needs to be put on the teachers in order for them to catch up and know how to use it. And when I say know how to use it, not physically use it as we are using it, but use it within that education process. Which brings me to the last part and actually addressing your question, and that's maintenance. Of course, that would always be an issue, a concern. I would say maintenance and security. Security, because as we actually start giving these devices to our young ones, you want to make sure that they are properly secured. So the ideal security will be, of course, a remote manageability solution, very similar to some solutions we have been using with many of our partners here. And the last full national deployment was done in Lebanon. So that worked out very well in terms of security. As for maintenance, there are 2 models for maintenance. One, there's the, I would say, tier 1 and tier 2. which can be, again, be helped through telecos. This can be solved over call center phone call. And a tier 2, that you need to bring it to a close-by shop. And tier 3, there's either a replacement or a vendor interference. So, and the good news about that is that I think we have been practicing the maintenance across all of our devices for the past 20 years. So I don't think maintenance will become an issue. What would be an issue is that how would you get that part of that process? Again, remember, we're talking about education in here. So that's not a device that you want to entertain and sell to or sell through or have a retail. This is an educational device that would do entertainment as well, but it's a focus into education device.
Thank you very much. In fact, one of those things about policies is coming up because it's very important to understand who makes those policies. Now, before we get into the policies, from a Ministry of Education point of view, if they have made a decision on a platform, what do you think the limitations would be on choosing certain platforms? Are there limitations if you've worked with various platforms? And what do you think those limitations might be?
I don't think that there will be any limitations if we use platform, if we know how to use it and why do we want to use it. There are many platforms and they have brilliant features that will really allow the communication and collaboration between teachers and parents and between students and teachers. And this is what we're lacking right now. We're lacking this kind of communication between all these players in order to achieve better outcomes out of the learning system, education system, sorry. So basically, we're talking about policymakers that need to really look for the platform that is most suitable for the needs of that system. We know that systems differ. We have systems that are very much centralized, and we have systems that give the authority to the school to decide what they want to do. So it depends on where you are, in which country you are, in which region, and what are the needs of that specific education system. But I don't believe that there will be any limitations with the learning management system. On the contrary, it allows that kind of collaboration and communication if it was used well by all parties.
Excellent. Anybody want to add to that? Excellent. Now, the next question, which was already brought up, Mr. Hasan, thank you very much, is obviously policies. And I think I'm going to ask Dr. Harris to possibly talk about policies in education in the schools. You know, who is obviously responsible for obviously getting connected to the internet devices, and are the policies discussed by the board? Is it discussed with the parents, or who are the decision makers of the policies?
I think you run into a lot of layers within this question. I think that you have to look at a ministerial level or an organizational level to have policies around your replacement cycles, the maintenance that we were talking about earlier, the care, the ownership, if things happen out of warranty. How is that dealt with? Speaking specifically of tablets, they are a unique device in that they are intended to move with the student, and yet the most delicate piece is directly on the front. Right? So some of the maintenance, the out-of-warranty costs are built right into the design of the machine. So there needs to be policies within the institution about how do we deal with those issues, how are we going to replace them to ensure that we have a sustainable model. A lot of schools will purchase these devices or consider an implementation but not consider the depreciation. What do we do in 3 years? What do we do when the next wave comes in? Those are policy decisions that have to happen at a fiscal level and at a higher level. The actual usage level, I think, can come down to the school level or even the classroom level with discussions with parents. If the computers are going to stay at school, how are they going to be used in the classroom? What are our behavioral expectations from the students? Those are things that can't necessarily be decided at a very high level and need to be decided with teachers in their particular schools. However, I do recommend that as you do this, that these are open discussions, that there's a transparency about how long we expect the device to live, what happens if it breaks, what are our warranty implications, when it's going to be used in classrooms, what are our expectations of teachers? Is there a certain amount of time? Is there a return on investment? What sort of products are we hoping to get out of them? How do we expect them to interact with content? And the students themselves. How are they going to be using the How are they going to be using the tablets? How often? How do we want them to act? What are the security concerns? their presence online, their usage of something that belongs to a school does have implications for everybody. Those things need to be discussed and well known throughout the community.
Very valuable points. I'd like to add also controlling the experience is very important. Controlling which is reinforcing the points that Dr. Harris just made. What is the experience in the classroom and what is the experience outside the classroom? Because that's important. I think many tend to ignore, this important fact, because also, how do I control the consumption of information inside the classroom? That's also important. What do I need them to learn in the classroom? What would I like to have them learn outside the classroom? So there's reinforcing the points. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I add, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Can I add the point here? I'll add to my friend from Microsoft what he just said. I think today tablets inside the classrooms or in the education sectors needs to be governed by, I think, an international body that can put standards. I mean, we're facing a lot of educations now. The interests are great, the devices are there, the prices are very reasonable. And but what's missing here is truly a set of standards in terms of policies that can be put and identified for any educational institutes around the world to follow. We specifically encountered certain issues along the way. Like, for example, everybody today uses Facebook. Now, if we introduce tablets in the hands of the students inside the school, do we block Facebook or do we gain access to it? This is a very, very powerful question. Till today, there are some debates on that. And if you want to do that, how do you do it? The similar situation goes on YouTube. We know that YouTube has a lot of fantastic educational content. Now, what do you do? And how do you control the access of YouTube inside classrooms? One student, for example, decides to access a YouTube video that is very high definition, that consumes all the bandwidth. That can has a tremendous effects on usability. So the question is, those policies are extremely important. They need to be defined. We need to help the educators. I mean, all of us in here. I mean, all the vendors. They should come together and probably work with international institutions to put those policies and make them clear and create them and make them ready for the education sector around the world.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think that is probably the most important thing when it comes to devices and ICT in education is the policies. And obviously, how do we govern these policies? We're, I think, on the tip of the iceberg of ICT and technology in education. For the education system for the last 70 years, we all know, or probably longer than that, for time, has been books. And books, okay? And obviously, books are heavy. Books get lost, they get damaged and everything as well. But like Dr. Harris mentioned as well, is the device that we've got, it needs to be, obviously, the correct device to be able to do the job required in the classroom. And if necessary, also out the classroom. So for example, watching movies is not a priority. Watching movies is not a priority. Okay, but obviously reading the textbooks, looking at the images for the particular subject is very, very important. So we've got a lighter device. I'm going to give you an example in terms of policies. One of my good friend's daughter, they said they're going iPad for the curriculum. All the content was created for the devices, and what actually happened is they didn't specify which model, because these models get changed every 9 to 12 months. A new one comes out. So how do you make a standard of what is available? So he got an iPad because it says get iPad. Now, of course, the first generation of the device was not equipped with a camera. And they got given a task to do something with their devices, is to take a photo of something and make it creative and artistic. Now, of course, her iPad was not equipped with a camera. So immediately she got 0. How do you justify that? You know, the policy said, get an iPad. I got an iPad, no problem. So I think setting up the policies is very important to say, listen here, this is the device, and then as vendors, we need to make the device available for a year and a half, 2 years. Expand the life cycle of the product. I know consumer is great because technology needs to move on. However, in certain enterprises, for example, you've got to have a device that is available for longer periods of times. So you can work on standards, and the only way you can work on standards is to make devices available. And my minimum, I would say, is up to 18 months, 15 months, 18 months. And that in technology is a long period of time because we're always getting newer technologies. So policies, I think on devices is very important, and we've got to be clear in setting those policies to make sure we've got the right devices for the right job. So now that we've got the devices down to almost where we want them to be, the content is important. How do we decide once again now on content for the devices? Do we have it fully interactive? Or what I called this morning, do we have flat books? Now a flat book is basically a PDF. Non-interactive, it's like a book. You open it up, there's nothing there, you can do nothing with it. Or do we look at content with animation on it, with certain video clips, with 3D pop-outs, you know? And obviously, once again, bringing back to policies, who decides on the content? Who would like to talk on that? Thank you very much, Ms. Rana.
I think what decides on the content is your learning outcomes, to be honest with you. What do you want to achieve out of all what you're doing? What is the education value of using this device, okay? If I want to use it just to have the PDF file on the device, which will replace the book, is this what I want? What is the value of using technology then? So it depends on where do you want to go with this device and what do you want to achieve. Do you want to really start working more on having a visual, having simulations, having some kind of interactive material, or you just want to have a PDF file and put it on your device? So it depends on where do you want to reach with those devices, but definitely the learning outcomes, they should shape the kind of technology that you want to use and the type of content that you want to have on your devices.
Thank you. Mr. Isam, you would like to just comment on that as well?
I think one discussion that I've been having with several experts in the field and ministries, and where I think it should be a transition. Everybody would like to be an EPUB, to like to be on the latest platform, EPUB 3, HTML5, very interactive. But there are challenges taking a route like this in some countries around the region. You have to get the publishers on board. There's an issue of digital rights management. There's a lot of issues that are involved. It would really make sense, in my opinion, to transition slowly from one phase to another. So you would at least have flat content to begin with, and I would venture to say that there will be huge cost savings in the sense that every ministry prints out books every year, year after year. They go and publish print books for students. Now, if you have those books in a digital format where you can just have it available on these devices as a starting point, and then you transition into interactive EPUB 3, HTML5 standard, that would be, in my opinion, the right approach. Thank you.
Dr. Harris?
I want to talk about some technical items just to make sure that we're all very clear. So when we discuss tablets at present, there are really 3 operating systems to come back to this notion. Each of them have some unique features that we need to consider when thinking about content delivery. So with iOS on the Apple tablets, you're accessing a lot of your content either through the network, through the internet, or you're using specific apps that are designed for specific content areas, and this is part of the selling point. Now, I come from Singapore. This is where I work. Singapore is a very small country. We don't have a very large population. The way that Apple has structured their program is that they take their iTunes store and they make it country specific. So when I create an app about a specific content level or in a specific language, I work at a German school, the app maker gets to choose which country it goes in. And so they can choose the entire list, they can choose very specific countries. Very rarely do I find that a German app maker chooses Singapore. So that is a limitation that we have to consider. If you talk about Android's another option that we have definitely considered. Their app store is much broader, it's more open. There's content that can be created very easily, and it's content that can be created specifically for Android from people internally. So that's a resource that we can use internally within your country or within your institution to build content specifically towards some of the learning outcomes that you're discussing. However, there's a learning curve there. And the amount of content out there is very hard to negotiate. There's a lot there to choose from. Microsoft is a different piece. Their Metro, their app store is a work in progress, and it's growing, but it does provide the connection with other tools that you spoke about earlier. When you're choosing your platform or you're thinking about content, my suggestion to you is have a good look. Have a good look at what is available in your country, what is available within the intellectual capacity and the creativity within your organizations to create content as needed, and do a full needs assessment of that tied to your learning outcomes before you make a very clear choice about where to go. Because as we mentioned earlier, this is a fundamental choice. It's a 3-year choice, it's a 5-year choice. If you make the wrong decision and suddenly Apple decides that they're not going to have content in your area, or Android is going to change their policies, or Microsoft has moved on to Windows 9 and that changes everything, those are things that you have to be prepared for as you're moving forward with your tablet technology.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Very, very valuable points. Now, before we move on, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just thank Ms. Rana for her time this morning. I know she's got another important meeting to attend. Ms. Rana, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you safe travels. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so moving on now, back to the vendors, the people that make the equipment and everything. How do we look at devices now and say, listen here, right, what are we going to help? What are our educational objectives in assisting with the devices? Do we supply the devices with manageability software? Do we supply the devices with learning software and all that kind of stuff? So from a vendor point of view, what are we doing? What are our educational objectives?
So that's a very good question. And it leads to the whole point that devices are important. They're very important. Obviously, it's what you're going to end up working with, but they are not the key pillar of this discussion. The key pillar of this discussion is how to enable that. So you can have top-of-the-art devices with the best choice of operating systems. If the teachers are not well trained and the classroom is not well equipped and the infrastructure doesn't serve that, these devices might collect dust. On the other hand, if the content was there in terms of education, and there's the infotainment, there's the content that you mentioned, companies like mine introduce, for instance, the interlearning series on every device we actually put out for education. The interlearning series is a series of applications and education format that actually helps or enables that education process in a smoother manner, including e-reader for PDFs and what have you. So I think companies that put devices into education need to make sure that those devices were designed for education, in terms of, could be from ruggedness, because again, your 10-year-old will be using a different device in a different manner, the device, than your 18-year-old. So it's obviously more prone for breakage, more prone for accidents. So that's in terms of hardware. In terms of software, education is essential in terms of education software is essential in terms of enabling that device. So what I would suggest, and what currently many of my colleagues on this respectful panel are doing, is that there are specific education-based devices, and those education specific have already integrated with them the security on the chip level sometimes, and the content that automatically enables that education content to pour in. So you need to build that environment, so whatever can come in can actually come in that pipeline, if you want.
Mr. Ziyad, you would like to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. We believe in HP, for example, that part of our proposition for education is with every devices that is moved to within the education sector, we put a huge emphasis on one very important module, which is the HP Classroom Manager. It's an application that gives a total control for the teachers inside the classroom, because today one of the most important factors inside the classrooms and one of the main element that is that the teacher wants to have a full control over those devices and the students using them. So we believe that offering a tool in the hands of the teacher, I think you will break big percentage into making those teachers adapting to the technologies in the classroom. So the existence of software like HP Classroom Managers and other tools, I think today the teachers are more perceptive. They accept the technologies inside inside their classroom today.
Mr. Cox.
Yeah, yes, it's an interesting discussion, this, and there's no clear and simple answer. I think it was Stephen Hepler who said every device that's switched off is a student that's switched off. And ultimately, the reality of the situation in education, for me, having worked in schools in an international and Arabic context, is that we need to focus more on the learning with these devices. So that should be, in fact, we talked about policies. There should just be one policy, a learning policy, and every other policy should feed into that. Douglas Adams said, I think, a quote from him, he said that anything in this world when you're born is normal and ordinary and boring. It's how the natural world works. If you're between the ages of 15 and 35, it's new and exciting and revolutionary, and you might actually just make a career out of it. Anything invented after the age of 35 is just against the natural order of things. So therefore, if we were to bring a group of teachers in today, I think they would struggle with this conversation that we're having right now, and that is the reality of the situation. So any vendor that is able to offer that parallel change culture process, coaching, professional development, that enables those devices for the end user, the learner, I think, that's, having worked in schools, is what I would embrace more of.
Thank you very much. And I can actually relate to that is once again, if you are selling devices into education, make sure that it comes with the correct training. And especially if teachers have been in an environment for a long time. The life cycle of a teacher, what is the life cycle of a person in education? It is a long time. They basically start teaching and then they eventually retire 40 to 50 years later. That's the way it is. It's in you. Who agrees with that statement? I know, because my wife is in education, my mother-in-law is in education as well, and has been for many, many years. And if you're introducing the new technologies as a vendor, make sure that the education to the educators on the devices is done. And this is an example that's happened in my wife's school. She got the parents together, she got the policymakers, the governing body, the educators, everybody saying, we are going to implement smart projectors. These interactive projectors with whiteboards and everything, they all said it's only going to cost a couple of rands more per month for students, and they all got together and they said, vote yes, vote no, and then they voted them. So it's a project that's taking 3 years, and they'll be buying 10 to 20 each year. So they've now rolled out between 15 and 20 over the last year. How many of those devices have been used to their full potential? Anybody want to take a guess? The one with the most lamp life. So how many hours of work in a school day is about 5, right? So I can tell you now, the one projector has been used in 1 year a total of 60 hours. 60 hours. That's not even a week's worth of work, or almost 2 weeks. So it is important for us that when we introduce technology, that the training to the education is done. And of course, that brings me to my next point is, do we think that the tablet is the solution? Is it the most affordable solution moving forward? Is the tablet, or do we go back to books? Yes, sir.
I would answer that in a generic and quick manner. It's not the tablet, it's the device. ICT needs to be in education. That's a given point. Today, e-commerce in 2018, 2019 will be up to 95% of our all commercial transactions. So we are in a world that we have not been grown up to be accustomed to. However, that should not be the case for our children. So the device needs to be there, the ICT needs to be there, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a clamshell, whether it's a laptop. It needs, as long as your components are there in terms of content, training, focus, security, and actually getting this to deliver that new education experience, then I think you have a bingo. So is it a tablet or not a tablet? It really doesn't matter. It's the process that matters.
It's technology, correct, yes. Correct. Just before you go, sir, this Mr. Isam over here from Microsoft.
And thank you both for raising that very important issue. I want to mention an article that I read a long time back by Mark Pensky, which was about the digital citizen, digital immigrant. Today, in reality, during this time, our teachers are digital immigrants, and our students are digital citizens. They're born knowing how to use these devices, but teachers don't. Unless these teachers get ready, it'll be a challenge. I mean, you will have a challenge adopting technology in the classroom because, simply put, unless the teacher feels that he or she have total control over the class, delivering teaching with technology, it will never work. So that's extremely important. It's not really about the device, and as my colleague has mentioned, we really need to think how we can create adoption scenarios within the classrooms to make sure that the teachers are in the forefront of adopting and learning using that technology.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ziyad, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, we have a perfect example, and we should learn from it. Make no mistake about it. The school bag as we know it today is going to change, and that's going to change very quickly. It's very, very soon where we'll see kids with no school bags at all, with no books. It happened to the music industries 5-6 years ago. Today, how do you download music? Through the net, right? You don't go down anymore to the shop and buy a CD. So what happened to the music industry is repeating itself within the K-12 and education sector in terms of replacing those hard books, heavy school bags. That's going to transform into e-content, and that's going to transform into material that will be available on the web for schools, for teachers, for students, and the devices and tablets are only tools to get those information. That's it.
Excellent. Mr. Cox.
Yes. Again, I have to come back to the pace of change of technology is happening so fast, but it's not, the curriculum hasn't maintained that pace as well. So we're at a crossroads. The curriculum and pace of change of curriculum and its creativity is not keeping up with the pace of change of technology. But ultimately, technology is going to come in, and mobile devices is going to come in. If you go to your local hospital now, I used to work in the healthcare business for 10 years before changing career. If you go to your hospital, you expect the latest 3D equipment, the latest technology, etc., etc. If it's not there, you go to another hospital. Simple as that. But ultimately, if anything happens that's wrong, and God forbid in a hospital that does happen, the main issue and problem is people. So we need to keep focusing on developing people. This people challenge is the most important challenge for me in terms of developing and embracing technology. And that's where vendors can offer a lot of support in that area. Hopefully we'll make progress.
Right, thank you very much. And just before we finish this very, very productive session, I think what we're going to do is a final thought from the vendor's point of view. In terms of evolution, Dr. Harris spoke about the evolution of the PC. As you said, 15 years ago we had a PC, then we had the laptop. A couple of years back there was this phenomenon called netbooks, and millions were sold worldwide. And then they took the screen off the netbook and they called it a tablet, and even more than that. Now, the rate of evolution has changed. It took 18 years to sell, I think it was 100 million PCs. 18 years. It took 6 years to sell 100 million mobile phones. and it's taken just 2 years to sell 100 million tablet PCs. So for the vendors, just quickly, in terms of technology and education, how are we going to be able to ensure that our programs are up to date in the evolution of technology, working with the Ministries of Education to ensure that we will be around in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years? Anyone want to take that? Yeah. There we go, sir. Thank you.
That's a tough one, because actually I think the coming from Intel and having an insight on the pace of technology and how fast it's going, I don't think any of us would know where we would be in 5 years technology-wise, and and accordingly you can plan accordingly. But what you can do is you can have the proper components to have proper refresh cycles that should be adopted within your policy, and hence, if you want, you can hedge against that particular risk, which is technology moving too fast for us to catch up? Never, because the way technology is being formed, and yet in a much faster manner now, is towards the customer experience and customers' demand. So actually technology is adapting to your everyday life to facilitate it, not for you to try to catch up. So I think it will be a natural evolution. What we need to have as part of our policies is a refreshment cycle to ensure that you continue evolving with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been a very useful session. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel once again, let's have it for them. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.